what's low budget at that point in time in your mind's eye? Was it 5 grand, 50 grand, or 500?
The common thing with every producer is that no one will ever say no.
Because a lot of people started out in our generation with a Super 8 movie.
Sean and Stephanie were saying the last day.
Yeah, watch the show. Woohoo! In the room, 52 Jokers Wild.
It's another Friday, everybody, and thank you for joining us. This week in the room, we have Sean Breathnach. Hopefully I've got your name right there, Sean, because I know sometimes you said that was difficult.
It'll do. We don't care.
It'll do. We don't. It'll be fine. And this week, what's really good is we're talking to someone who's made a feature film and has managed to get it into distribution, and it's currently on Amazon Prime at the moment, so you can get that available. I think it's free if you have Amazon Prime at the moment, which is pretty fantastic. And those are the things that we want to kind of talk about. One is getting into this industry. What do you need to actually think about, and all those kind of things, but also to try and get people to start to think a little bit more about, everybody loves the film industry. It's a nice place to go to. It sounds really glammy, but when you really get down to the nuts and bolts of it, it is hard work, and you have to love it, and you have to have a passion. And I'm sure, Sean, that's what you had. You must have had a passion to get your movie off the ground and started. Tell us how did it happen? How did it all come together?
I'll give the shorter version of the story, just so I don't bore you all. But I had been writing scripts for a long time in terms of the feature films. Now I've been making short films and music videos and that, but I wanted to make a feature like so many of us. And I had been writing these scripts, and they started off being kind of high budget Hollywood style films. And I remember talking to the film board years ago, and they were encouraging me to keep doing that. They were like, keep writing, don't worry about budget, keep going with this. But in reality, that's one way of going if you've got an agent and you know how to get scripts, and so few of those scripts are made every year that, like, in reality, like writing films that need 50 million plus, it's fun, but it's not going to get you anywhere. So I started trying to write something that I could film, and it probably took 3 or 4, maybe even more feature film scripts before I realized, because I'd write it and I think, this is low budget, this is definitely low budget, I can make this. And then I would start to work out the costs, and I'd realize this is nowhere near low budget, this is bananas. And then I would strip it back even more, and it would inevitably, it just was something that wasn't possible for me to do. And all the time I'd send it in to the kind of funding bodies for funding, but that wasn't happening. So in the end, I got frustrated, and I thought, well, I'm just going to have to film something that I can film with brilliant actors that I've worked with on short films, with brilliant crew that I've worked with on short films, that people that I know that would trust me, that we all work well together, that have a relationship with each other too. So, like, the set is going to be a happy place and you're not going to have any problems there. And the inspiration came watching sci-fi film Coherence, which was mostly set in the guy's own house. And it was the drama between the characters, even though it was sci-fi, it had elements of both, but it still had a great story. And you could see how that could be achievable. And then I saw the next day a story about a sinkhole opening in China. They were calling it the Gates of Hell. And I thought, I'll marry these two ideas. And I just started writing the script pretty much instantly. And I would have been in the past very, very meticulous in terms of writing treatments, writing longer treatments, writing a script out of the treatments. With this one, I went into it sort of gung-ho in a way. I knew where it would start and where it would end, but I hadn't planned out the journey. And I started writing it. And even when I was probably 40 or 50 pages into it, I started getting the cast and crew together. It's not the way you'd normally do things. And I wouldn't do it now. But
I'm going to stop you, Sean, because the accountant is off already.
There's the accountant going again.
I'm going to ask a question. What's low budget? Because I see, myself and George were talking before this, a low budget for a 50 million, but like sort of mindset is 5 million. A low budget for a 5 million mindset is 500 grand. 500 grand is 50 and 50 is 5. If you do all the fives, if you're coming with nothing, you're going, I'm going to do this for 500 quid. And if it works up, you're working now back up. You started writing features because you were the artist, the creative. You wrote the story. And then you went afterwards and said, Jesus, this is a 50 million pound film. When I applied the maths to the creativity. But then you sent it off to the film board or whoever else. They said, good, keep doing that. Something from someone that has no risk or invested in it. Says, you go off and do all your work. You go off and figure it out. You take all the risk. If we like it, we might come back to you. But doesn't matter if you make no money and can't pay for the bread and butter for the kiddies and all the rest of it. So it's the risk reward keeps on moving back and forward. You are doing a low budget. So we go back to the beginning and go, what was your mindset of the figure? What's low budget at that point in time in your mind's eye? Was it 5 grand, 50 grand, or 500?
You're right. My idea of low budget had been kind of pulling back all the time, because I had been a part of the Catalyst program, and that they were 350, and that was micro budget, but what it ultimately comes to the point where you're thinking it's something that I can achieve myself. So it wasn't really so much about the low budget as it was about something that I could do based on my own savings, kind of help from local businesses, crowdfunding, and then pretty much everyone pitching in,
That's
all
brilliant. You're building it from the sum of the parts up based on, it's what I have, it's what I can attract. If I want more, I've got to attract more. I have to sell a story. I cannot do it without it, therefore, and that's what we're finding. An awful lot of people that are approaching us are just sending us unsolicited scripts. And what they're saying is, the conversation could be, I'm not too sure. That could be a 1 million or a 5 million. I'm the artist. I'm the creator. That's my story. Sure, that's your problem to spend some money now to go figure out what that is. Because I don't know what it is. I just know it's great. And that's what we're getting an awful lot of that. And we get a fright going. For us even to look at it could be 2 weeks to figure out what the question is as regards what a budget could be. You said 50 pages. And I'm going, if you were 50 grand and 50 pages is a grand a page of budget. If it's 100 pages, it doesn't matter what the cast and crew cost. If you've 100 pages to get that page made, you just divide it by the page and go, that's all you have. It's 500 quid today, it's 1,500 tomorrow if you can move, if someone's bringing their own clothes with them. If there's makeup, if it's in your handbag, you're putting it on yourself. There's no costume and there's no makeup. So I love, because the little bit I read about yourself is, you said, feck this, you started talking business language. The minimum viable product is, if I want to do something, I have to do it myself. I've got to do it with the budget I have, because I got to do. And the great thing you said afterwards was my network to get work. I have this network of people are actually, if they're working in short space, more than likely are like yourself. They want to jump to the next level, but the space they're in is the journey from short to feature. So, and that's usually because we're not proven, or we're out of work, or we need a bit of work, or we're giving back. So I love it. You haven't got a proven something behind you yet to get to the next. For you to get from 50 to 500. You need a proven something you need to do. So the great thing here is you just went out and did it. And that's what I love. And that's where you are. But you have to be mindful of what you can do on your own shoestring. But
I think it'd be good to sort of explore that a little bit further, because I as well went out and made a film called Fiddler's Walk. And I, like yourself, got very frustrated that there've been lots of promises of help, a lot of promises of people saying that they would fund something. I developed a project that initially was going to be 50,000 in the year 2000. It then gradually went up to about 5 million or more. It was being put into a conglomerate of stuff. And every time I went to the meetings, I was gradually being pushed out. And so were all that collective. And in the end, I just went on and said, we're going to make a film. I probably did the same as you. I just went, right, let's just get a script together. What's the genre that we should use? My wife said chick flick. I said, right, okay, let's just make a chick flick because we can get everybody to watch it. But I went through, I broke the film down. I worked out the cost. and I had a budget. No, it didn't cost me this, but it was about 300,000 back in 2005, I think it was. We made it, and what we started to realize was that, okay, each person was putting something in. They weren't asking for anything, but I needed to know that if we did make some money, I'm going to have to pay them back for that in kind at some point. It's not the way Garvin would want to work, and he's not suggesting that we do this, and this is not where I want to go at this point. It's just that this desire to get out there and make a movie, use all the skills I'd done that seemed to be being pushed away as technology was changing, and I just wanted to demonstrate that I could make movie. And that's what I went about doing. So tell us a little bit more about your process that you went through in those early days, and how that 350,000 that you were being talked about looked as, and the relationship you had with the producers at that time.
Yeah, it was interesting because like there was a lot of us there for that particular, for the Catalyst thing. There was, the conference was in Croke Park, so you can imagine that like the amount of people that were going. They were only going to fund 3 projects in the end, so it was very tight. And when you went there first, everyone went separately. You know, some people came in teams, but most people didn't have their team, and I didn't have my team. I had people with me who were also writers and directors.
The free bar. We know the free bar was there. That's what they were doing. Yeah. They were there with their autograph books. There's going to be a bunch of stars looking for work, wandering around, sort of serving drinks in Croke Park.
That's it. But luckily, you know, I did meet a very good producer there, and we had a good relationship, a good a mutual respect, but also, you know, constant pushback from each of us from a good point of view, though. You know, having said that, she was always telling me that it wasn't worth her while working on this project. She had worked on TV shows, she'd worked in films, she'd worked on ads. She was saying,
I love it, women. You're beneath me. You don't know who I am. You don't value me. I'm not your husband. I'm not your boyfriend. I'm paying your wage. What you're talking about.
Yeah, I remember in 2001 there was a film made in Scotland, and one of the wardrobe department people was that negativity, just saying that, oh, this is not a real movie, but it was being shot on Super 16. It was, the whole thing was paid for. There were fairly well-known actors from the TV industry, and she was kind of going, it was £450,000 for what it was made for, and she was just kind of rubbishing it. And yet, you know, lots of the people that were in there are now big, well-known actors who've gone on and carved their career in the industry. So, you know, that's, you know, you don't know who you're going to be working with, and people have to start somewhere. So this is your journey. This is where you had to start.
No, it's about me, George. Fuck him. We're back to me. You know, no, go on.
the interesting thing is, like, actually, I've lost my point there. I was just going to say something. And,
good words. That's it.
He threw the grenade in. He threw the grenade in.
Oh yeah, what I was going to say was, I've talked to a lot of producers, as I suppose. I mean, you were saying yourselves that you get a lot of scripts, and I do the same. And I get in touch with producers and talk to producers, and all of them will say, the common thing with every producer is that no one will ever say no, for exactly the reason, George, you were saying there. No one wants to say no to something or someone that could be, you know, the next big thing.
Yeah.
So that's the interesting thing. So you never get a no. I mean, you'd almost like to get a no as much as a yes, so at least you could say, okay,
Sean,
you know,
no,
that's it, you know,
sorry, no. It's if you get a yes from us, you're bloody good. But we start with no. It's going to take a lot to get a yes.
This last 2 years has been me saying no to a lot of projects.
To me, the problem is it's him saying no to me.
No, actually, there's a few other people, because
turning work away. The hardest thing in the world is actually turning money away. That's what you're really saying.
No, that's not even the reason why we started to turn it away. And again, this is just coming into conversation with Garvin, was because we were being undervalued. There's, you know, I've got nearly 40 years experience of working in film and television from an editing perspective, directing little bits and pieces.
He's an old man. He's got his pension card.
Yeah.
He gets free on buses, for God's sake.
Next year I will be. I'm looking forward to it, you know, but we're still young at heart. That's it. We're still a kid. I'm a 6-year-old, really. But the thing is that I began to realize, look, all those promises of the next job being the one that will pay you, and it's not a reality. It's just a way of keeping you at a low end budget sort of thing. And we've started to realize, look, we have a worth, and within the projects that we're starting to develop through the Film Production Academy, we will get our worth. We will be, and we'll also make sure that the people working on the project get their worth. So although it's a small, low budget, we're going to work it in such a way that everybody will be valued, and there will be that need for that kind of positivity. Because I think we mentioned before that kind of negativity can just get in there, and it's like that little thread in your jumper that you suddenly pull. There's one. Just if I pulled that, the whole jumper will fall apart, type thing, and that can happen in a movie. And I know on our film projects, we had a few people being a bit negative, and we went, we don't think you're right for the project. Thank you for your time. Sorry you can't help us this time, but who knows what the future may be. And we found somebody that was more positive, and they did a better job. And
actually, there's a weird thing. The language there, George, and I think Sean as well, is there's money and there's passion. There's creativity, and creativity is fighting money because money is usually the accountant and creativity is usually the artist. And the artist is going, this is my vision. And the accountant is going, that's great. It's inside your head. Getting it out is the problem. I've got sci-fi, CGI, costume drama, cast of thousands, and you're going, it's 30 seconds. And I think the guy actually turned his head and asked to pass the popcorn when it was shown. So it's who's valuing what cost. But if we can meet the passion with the right value of money, then you're working, you could get paid more if you're working in an industry. You're going, no, I want to be in control. I want to be the artist, but I want to have a business head on my artist or mind and realize that it has to pay the bills. No, it has to go beyond that and give me a certain amount of lifestyle that, I can afford not to be stressed while working in my passion. And that's what our last few years of the first 50 shows. I think you're one of our newest podcast subscribers, and you joined in the business film series. But if you accidentally went back to episode 1, you're going, what the feck are they shiting on about here? What's this balance and fear? And what that was is people going into business for themselves and realizing now they have all the risk, but they don't know what the reward is yet. But the reward is, we know we're on the journey to that reward. That's what you decided. You got your film out there. You mentioned in a little text to me there yesterday that it could have been a budget of 20 grand, but you, because of your business head, know the real budget was 80. Because when you did your magic maths, that's what people believe. That 60 grand is how much people believed in you and your vision and your creativity. And that you want to pay back, because you said it in the thing going, we're on Amazon. And if that money comes back, these people believed. They're my investors. It's their share. And the next one is 500, and I know who my go-to team is.
There's something very interesting. Yeah, I mean, Gavin and I have had this conversation because one of the things that I did with, and you're not allowed to
talk, Sean. We're actually talking to each other here. We need a guest sitting there so we can talk to each other, because we're sick of sight of each other.
I need to bring it round so that Sean can actually answer.
There wasn't even a question.
There wasn't even a question as well. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. No, I've lost my track now. No. It works every time. No, but what we did, you've talked about the fact that you knew who the elements were, you knew who those investors were, and you're working with them. And one of the things that I realized that was so important, because everybody was saying to me, "Oh, George, look, don't worry about contracts or anything like that." And I went, "I'm sorry, you can't if you're not prepared to have the contract." Which basically tells you that if the film makes some money, there is a small percentage. It's not very big, but you'll get something. That there is a contract that's between us, so we know what the expectations are. Because I had people working on my film for 3 days, and they enjoyed themselves so much they wanted to come back. I said, "No, you can't, because you've got another job to go and do, and that's what you need to do. You've committed yourself for 3 days. We really appreciate it. You'll actually appear throughout the whole movie as a character that pops up here and there." And we really thank you for your time, but it would be a use and abuse if we had you on here any longer than that. And those are things that, because people's excitement just say that they'll get into things. But sometime down the line, when somebody comes back to you and says, "Do you remember we worked on that film about 10 years ago? And I hear you've made £550 billion or whatever is on it. I want my cut. And then if you don't have some kind of agreement between you,
so
and them,
the question
there's
is,
a problem there.
On this movie, that's 60 grand of hope value. Do you have contracts in place with them all, or was that the admin comes after the storm?
No, you can't do that. The
great stuff, love it, perfect.
Yeah. No, you have to. And the thing is, you're both dead right. I mean, I suppose the old cliche of film being a collaborative medium, it's one thing, you just cannot do it by yourself. And if you're going to have to get people involved, you've got to be offering them something. You can't expect people to put in the work, and not have anything out of it. And I am very much like yourselves. Everyone should get paid. But in my own situation, it was a situation that the film just wouldn't happen. So when I went to people, it was people that I had worked with before, people who I consider my friends, pretty much all of them. They are all friends.
Not anymore, but they were then. Pretty
much all of them that I had worked with before. And they believed in it. They knew from the past, because I had short films out, and like you were saying about the feature film being a step to the 500 grand budget, the short films were the step to Beyond the Woods, because the short films proved that I could make award-winning films, and that I would finish a film, and that I would get it out there. I mean, there's so many people who start this process and then don't finish it. And the very least you got to do is, for everyone who put their effort in, you got to finish the thing, whether it's a short film or a feature film or whatever it is. It's got to be finished. It's got to go out there. Unless people are getting paid, then they don't really care. But I mean, still, ideally, for your own reputation, you should get it out there. But they are all investors in this film. And I told them at the start that I would not make this film if I didn't think that they would all get paid. Now, the thing is, as with another learning thing, is how long it takes to get paid, because it takes bloody ages. I mean, it's just ages and ages and ages. It goes through a distributor. They take all their costs before anything is paid out, and then they take their percentage before anything is paid out after that. So, and then even when they're dealing with streamers or with the likes of HMV or all the rest, they don't get paid. It's not like you send in your invoice and you get paid a month later. That's not how it works. I'm
going to ask a question, because I still haven't got a straight answer from anybody, and I'm about 2 years into this. How much? Not how much. It's like saying, we know in the theatre it would have been 10 quid, and the theatre gets X, and there might be 3 quid share. Forget all that. We'll talk one language of streamer, because I know if you're the beast on YouTube and you've got basically 1 million views, you might get 700 quid. So it's a 7-cent scenario. Actually, I think it's 7 cents for every 1,000 views is a multiple if you were in YouTube in the ad space. So if you were actually on, let's say, Amazon Streaming Prime, there's a viewer. So we know it's free to theirs, but it's not, because I'm paying me 7 quid or 11 quid a month. So it's what I watch. They've got their algorithm that clocks in that you got 300,000 views. I don't know if it's length dependent, a full view. Is a view they watch the whole film, or is a view they actually turned it on? And in either scenario, do you get 10 cents, 7 cents, 5? What do you get for a view that's recognized as yours in a streamer, as an example, so we can work backwards, so we understand the magic maths?
You'll have to ask me that in about 3 or 4 months, because the only answer I can get at the moment
You're meant to know going in, you have a contract.
That's it. I do, but the thing is, I have a contract with the distributor. And the distributor,
he has it. He's not telling you. That's it. He's not telling you.
That's it. So it's like, I have to wait. I get in touch with them, and they're like, "Oh, we won't know for another few months."
Yeah.
It's.
Have you any clue of No, there you go. I thought I was going to 1 million views, 1 million quid. We have this unrealistic expectation. That's what everyone says. Yeah. Everyone comes to us and goes, my story is Blair Witch. Sure, you'll be a millionaire. And we're going, it got 3 views. You're going, we spent 1 million. Actually, the 1 million to get a production 1 million back is 100 million customers required at 10 cent or wherever you want. They don't know the math. They think what they see on the box office is yours somehow.
Yeah, it's like what Sean and Stephanie were saying the last day.
Yeah, watch the show. Woohoo.
I did. They were great.
Two viewers. We're laughing.
Wow, we're doing grand. We're doing grand.
It was very interesting listening to what they were saying.
Not us, of course. Very interesting what they were saying.
They were saying.
What you always say. What you always say.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the bigger, like they said, the bigger sales agents command the bigger fees, and any of the streamers pay. You will hear any amount. It's bananas for low budget films. And the thing is, even me saying that I made it like for less than 20 with friends means that they won't pay as much. I'd be better off coming out here and saying it cost me $300,000 to make.
That's it. It's 100. We know it's really 100.
That's it. But it is. It does. All these things affect. And then how good my distributor is at negotiating these deals, all that sort of thing, everything, and whether it's going in as part of a package with the multiple films, or whether it's going in on its own, how that's all divided up. You really, it's a funny thing.
It's painfully ambiguous, isn't it?
It's painfully ambiguous, and I see it even with the likes of Darren Aronofsky when he made Pi. I think he only paid his crew like about 20 years afterward, because like it took him that long to get the money from that film to get to him so as he could pay them. It is painfully ambiguous. And I've talked to people, I know people who have sold films to streamers, and and the money can be anything from like, $4,000 or $5,000 all the way up to $500,000, So like, and they're people that I would be talking to. I know that the same time as my film came out, there was another film, what was it called? A Ritual. And Netflix paid them 5 million quid straight off for that film. But when you look at the people who were involved in that film, there was big names involved in it. So, it's not saying that film is worth X times what my film is worth, but it is that they're thinking, okay, well, the people in these films are part of the industry, so it's a different thing. So if I was coming around with the next film, it would be different again.
Do you think you're telling a great story now that an investor in indie production would like to be hearing?
I know what you're saying. Look, you can make the money back, and from the figures that I've seen, But the whole point is at the beginning.
That's the difficulty we're finding. 2 years ago, we've mentioned this a few times in our shows, the research said the investor in indie production had left the market. He's going to just invest in wind farms. He's going to invest in his own pension and get 50% return on a cash account in a pension. He doesn't need to take any risk for anything for a 50% return. So if we are just looking at £1 million budget, we're going, that million, if it's Bob and Joe, had to earn 2 million, pay tax at 50%, to end up with $1 million to be able to put into your budget without any tax break, because there's no tax break to that investor. So you're saying 2 million of earnings to put in $1 million at risk on an unknown payback or term or timeline.
Yeah, it's massively high risk. It is high risk. There's no denying it, And if I was coming out here to try and convince people to invest, then you'd go about it a different way. But I am coming out just telling you how it is now but that's
hold on a second. You just said if you weren't being honest, you would have lied through your teeth to us if you thought we were the investor.
I would never be that type of person. I would always
be ambiguous enough. I have a Blair Witch. Look what I have in my pocket here now. What we have is a Blair Witch. The Netflixes will love it. And you'll get your $1 million back in 6 months based on the 2 million customers who'll watch it. And
the Blair Witch, again, I keep saying, ever since the Blair Witch has come out, we've always been told just avoid that one because that's not a reality. That was just something that happened. That's the blip.
Yeah, and Paranormal Activity. A lot of them are outliers. But haven't said everything like that. My film still has made its money. It's just I haven't got that money.
No, all right. Now hold on a second. Let's go, because there you go. I mean, how much time and effort, if you were working in McDonald's or Lidl at 10 quid an hour, they're 20 quid an hour. They're actually very, very well paid. So of your hours of opportunity cost of investing in your dream, you haven't been paid minimum wage.
But I did it as an investment. and the investment.
So you're an investor that was willing to lose everything, which you did because you weren't paid.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Not yet, but I still expect I will be. I expect ultimately everyone will get paid. It's just slower.
Yeah.
And like you say, there are way easier ways of making money. Of course there are, like way easier. But the thing is, you have to be, people in the film industry are entrepreneurs as well as filmmakers, or they have to be. Like you say, someone coming to you with a script, everyone's got a script. I mean, I get people asking me will I read their scripts, and I'm thinking, there's no point.
You'll charge them, you'll get paid.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But the point is, everyone has ideas. Everyone has, but if you're making a film, it's a different thing, and you've got your own method or your own plans, which are great. They're original, and it's a unique way of looking at things, which all entrepreneurs should do. Spin the thing around and look at it from every angle. And you look back in the old days, Roger Corman, he the way he made movies, and he pumped them out there. There were always B movies. Some of them are very entertaining, and some of them aren't, but they all made money because he knew what he was doing, because he had his whole sales. Yeah, he had the model, and he had the sales end of it set up. Yeah. That's the other thing. If you have the proper if you have the sales end of it set up, there is a massive demand for content, especially.
There you go. It's a reverse engineering. It's going. Yeah. It's the money wants good content. Good content wants to work out but it's what we have is currently coming from the artist. We have the uncommissioned passion.
Yes.
That is not a content that was requested or asked for, and doesn't actually know what it is itself, because it hasn't been put through the first phases of this is a 10 million something, or a 20 million if you want to put A-list actors in it.
Let's just explore that in a slightly different way, because obviously, Sean, you've made a horror story. I think that's what. So you actually went for a genre. Why did you choose the horror genre in the first place? What led you to it?
It's not even that I chose it. Like, I've written at this stage about 16 feature film scripts, and pretty much all of them are in the horror genre, except one or two that are in the science fiction genre. It's just the genre that I grew up reading. James Herbert, Dean Koontz, Stephen King, they were as a kid, they were the books I read, and it seeps into the brain. So in terms of films, if you look at the DVD collection there's every sort of film there, every genre. But when it comes to writing stuff, or filming stuff, I tend to go that way. Even the short films, I've made plenty, but a lot of them swing towards the horror, because I enjoy it. It's a form of escapism to a certain extent. People will always say there's a social commentary in there, but that to me isn't the primary element. The primary element.
I haven't seen any of these now. Does it usually be everyone? No one escapes. Or is there a hero in there that finally makes it out alive, as they say? Or do you kill fecking everybody?
Yeah, pretty much. All
right, good man. You go in here, you're not coming out alive. That's grand. It's the body count and how long you last.
9 out of 10 of them wearing red shirts.
I looked at some article from, I can't remember his name, Stephen Fellow. Is that his name, George? Stephen? Anyway, he's chairman of the Central Film School or something. He does an awful lot of research in the industry. He had some bar chart the other day that was by genres showing this. It was red and green. And what this looked like was a horror movie, because 90% of it was red. This loses, that loses, the other loses, everything loses. And up the very, very little right-hand side was two little green bits of bar that were maybe 20%, 30% in. And strange enough, it was sci-fi and horror. And the more you combined them, working backwards was you wanted a zombie fest, sci-fi horror, with a little bit of comedy thrown in, and a bit of martial arts to just top it off. And you have the perfect combination. Yeah,
it's true. It's very, there's a loyal horror audience. I used to work with a guy years ago, an Italian guy, and he bought every zombie DVD. It doesn't matter whether he had never heard of the film, it was irrelevant. He was buying zombie DVDs, and that was it. Anyone comes out with a zombie film, 100 million film, £1 film, he's buying it. That's the level of loyalty. And you see, even with Beyond the Woods, there was a guy in England who made the who made the creature that's in the film. He made a model of it. Like, I don't know how long it took him, and he sent it to me.
Didn't take him long at all. The wife was sitting in the other room. He kept on looking back and getting a bit of modeling going.
But there's something interesting, because basically, the fans, as you say, will create, their creativity is coming through reproducing something they've seen in a movie. I mean, look at all the fan movies that you've seen, because people want to be in those films. But those guys will just go out and do it, the same as anybody that's on motorbikes that turn them into cafe races or any of those things. Some of those hobbies, they would do them and they'll spend millions or thousands on them because that's their passion. And I think that's really what the filmmaking side of it is, because a lot of people started out in our generation with the Super 8 movie, just filming little things because that's what they dreamed of doing. And there was that film 8mm, which is a horror story in itself. Those sort of genres do excite you, and you still want to do it. I mean, common sense probably says to me, George, why have you spent all your life being in the film or TV industry? You're completely daft. I get a big kick out of what I do. I enjoy what I do, and I can't give it up. That's the thing. So it isn't about common sense. The other thing is just how do you generate? We need to generate an income out of it. And one of the things I've always told a lot of my students is you've got to think of two things. You have your passion, and you have the thing that generates your income, so that you can carry on doing your passion. And that is a key thing. And I've worked as a lecturer, but in film and TV or media, and I've done editing. Those are the jobs that got me the income, so I could carry on doing the other side of it. And now I think we are getting sort of close to it. We're making stuff. That's the key thing. We're doing stuff. It may not be what people think is film, but still have to do.
No, there is, Sean. I'm thinking the weird thing is a couple of the conversations, even from our last guests, as we said, was we're 7 years in, we're 10 years in. It's not that they're 7 to 10 years in, it's they're that distance in because their dream and passion was actually dependent upon someone else's money. So if the money was there year one, you would have been doing it year one. Now, admittedly, we go, oh, well, I learned my passion more over the 10 years ago. No, the minimum viable product says you would have been doing more and better than earlier on, because you've done your learning before that, you've done your earning before that, you've done your shorts. You're ready then, and you're ready now to go to the next stage. It's what's the block? The move to, as I said, the block is still dependent on the next person that believes, but that person is a decision maker that can empower, or a suite of people, or a studio, or whatever else that commissions or seeks out. But in the absence of them coming, we've got to keep on doing, and we've got to do. Actually, you've touched on one thing there in the sense of you sort of know, you know yourself, and you know what you like. Therefore, you know there's a bunch of people like you, which are your potential audience, and they know what they'll like, and they'll seek it out. And your real journey is to reach through the social media and court your loyal audience. And that's where the crowdfunding type stuff actually works, when you're able to communicate with them, that you're not going off with a begging bowl and saying, look, just pay me bloody wage. They're actually the fanzine bunch that goes, we want Star Wars, or I think it was Terminator, and if you don't do it, we'll do it ourselves. We'll just get the money together and do a version. So it's that, how good on social media are you? How close to your next audience are you? What film is in the pipeline do you want to put forward that you know they're there, but you just can't talk to them yet?
Yeah, it's true. It's become such an important thing that, and also you have to be very genuine. You have to be a fan yourself, and you have to interact with all these people. If you want them to believe in you, to support you, you need to be one of them, really. I mean, that applies.
I'm one of them, all right. I'm one of them. I don't know what it is, but I'm definitely one of them.
One of them.
Yeah, but it is amazing how much social media has.
So you're on Twitter, Instagram, snapping, or you TikToking off your head? That's what we want to know.
Not TikToking, but I think more important for someone we say where I am, more important is it's networking. It's meeting people. Very hard to do in COVID. I mean, in part, you can do it on a computer, but it's not the same. I go around to, and this is another thing Stephanie and Sean were saying, I do go around to the markets and I do go around to the festivals. And it's, if you look at other people's success stories, particularly at the budget level that you're talking about, you know, we'd say £500,000 to £1 million, it's networking, because you get a sense of a person when you meet them, you know, face to face. So I do think networking is where, because you even see it with people who have made, you know, who have got budgets and that, who've got producers on board. It is through meeting people, and like even making my own film, it's through people I knew, and you just know, you know, you go on a set of making a feature film. It's a long process. You could be working with these people for a few years, and you've got to really know you're going to get on with them first and foremost. Even if you have the money. I mean, if they have the money, if you're working with someone with the money, or if you're working with someone who's a filmmaker, you have to get on. If one of those two is an asshole, then you got 2 years of pain ahead of you. You know, it's like. You really do.
Now, if both of them are assholes, we're in trouble. You know,
or else you got a genius.
Actually, the weird thing is, each of them is thinking, this fucking asshole. You're going. They don't. Neither knows who the other. It's the other one's the problem, not me. You know?
But that again, it's learning those skills of people skills, how to work with people and how to get the best out of them, how to nurture them, and I think that's
George.
I
remember something that Sean just sent on the hello, and I go, Sean, turns out he's owned up. He's a multi-schizophrenia. You know, suffers from multi-schizophrenia. He's a VFX guy. He's a producer, editor, writer, screen. I think there's Minder or something was out there. I wrote the theme tune, signed the theme tune. I'm doing it all because all those jobs and roles exist. And they have to be done, and there's no budget for them, therefore it's you. So you have to be a multi-schizophrenia type individual to work in film.
It's called a multi-hyphenated now. It's not called
that's what they called it. So they changed the name to that. We know it's multi-schizophrenia because multi-hyphen is just so they're a bit PC.
Yeah, it's true. But you could look at Shane Carruth, who did Primer, and he did even more. I mean, he acted in the film as well, you know. So he wrote, acted, directed, produced, did the VFX, did the sound, you know, built the props, did the whole lot. So I'm not
Gareth
quite
Edwards,
that far down there.
Yeah, Gareth Edwards, who eventually did Rogue One, and he also did Godzilla. That's what he did. His first movie,
you didn't do
Monsters.
it in Rogue One and Godzilla, George. They were 300 million apiece.
No, hang on a second, Garvin. Yeah, just yeah, I know. No, but he got to make those. Those are the films that he made after doing the multi-hyphenated to do the film Monster, the first monster film, by going to South America and actually taking a small crew. The editor went with them. They're in a small van. And they had two actors, and they just went, and he shot everything. And then when he got home, he went and put all the models in the bath and did all sorts of things to actually do the special effects, because he was a special effects person that wanted to get into filmmaking, and that's what led him on his journey. So again, that most people are learning through doing everything, because it's the only way you can get something done. And it can take quite a few years to get a project to completion, just because you're trying to find the time to. And if the technology keeps updating itself, that can also be a kind of problem. So are you finding yourself in that sort of role again with your next project? You know, how are things moving in that one?
Well, ideally, I don't want to be in that role in the next project. I just finished the script for that about a month or so ago. So I've sent it to a few people now. And
quick question, what's the budget? Based on your understanding now, from the minimum viable product up, because you know all the roles, what's the minimum that could be done? And then everything after that as an add-on is a named something.
You could do it relatively cheaply. Now, I will give you a figure in a minute. The reason I say that is it is one of those holy grail of micro-budget films where it is pretty much all one location, pretty much two actors. I mean,
brilliant. We're loving it already.
You know, yeah, it's and it has this sort of Conjuring style potential. Like it does have potential that it could be one of those films that makes many multiples what it costs to make it. And that's where the budget comes in, because you could make this film with nobodies in a mediocre location, probably for a couple of $100,000. You know, you could make it. You could even scrimp it and make it even less than that. If you want to add in some of the special effects that are in it, and you don't want someone like me to do it, where I'm not a VFX expert. I can do VFX, but if you want to really have it nice and polished, you could add in another couple of $100,000. So I would think that the amount of money the film can make will depend on how good the cast are, and how good the VFX is, and how good the location is. I was thinking of it myself. I thought, okay, you could probably find the house like I did with Beyond the Woods. You could probably find the house. You could build the interior in a studio, but it's going to be more expensive to put it in a studio than it is to just use a location. So there are multiple things that can.
Well, that's the great thing. You're going through scenarios going, the budget's going up and the story is staying the same. The minimum viable product is staying the same. If we're in multiple locations, well, the getting to and the coordinating of the location manager is X price. Then you're saying, well, I was in the studio, it might have been to build it, but I saved on the locations because it's the accountant loves you already. The production line manager going, right, the two. It's not what you thought was going to save, and it turns out it didn't. The one you looked at was actually cheaper when you brought in all the moving parts. Now, I'm going to throw in, because my background was business intelligence and effectively profitability. Budget buys profitability. But it doesn't buy, I used to have the product managers and marketing people coming to me, give me budget for cappuccinos and muffins. How much can I spend? And I was going, they were going, give me $1 million. And I go, there isn't 1 million customers. So therefore, you want to spend £1 million in a market that doesn't exist. You just mentioned it's moving from 300 grand to 400 grand for a bit of X. The 100 grand differential on a 10-cent return is 1 million extra customer viewers required for that sentence. Yeah, that's it. Because you see it in certain films. I mean, you've got Vivarium, which is a great film, and it has well-known actors there, with Jesse Eisenberg and her name escapes me now, but not as well known as she thought she was. Anyway,
yeah, she is. It's just my slow brain. But the film is like, and it's a great film, but it is like you say, sort of there's an art house element to it. Lorcan Finnegan makes those sort of films, and I really like his films because he does have a vision, Whereas this film my next film is definitely a more commercial film, but it's not a cheat. I hate commercial films made for the sake of commercial. I mean, it is a film that delivers to a horror audience. Yeah. Like, it's got new twists on different things that have happened in horrors, and new scenes and good characters and good tension and suspense. It's not a cynical move to say that it's a commercial film.
Well, the great thing is, you're saying you have a bag of tricks. You're going, if I have one last chance dance, my money is all in on this one.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Otherwise, I might have to get a job.
Yeah, well, I don't know if that'll ever happen.
No, I mean, a job which prevents you ever pursuing. That's what happens. It sucks you into the 40, 50 hours of something. You get comfortable with a certain amount of money. And to come back out of that and then pursue your art will be very, very difficult. I think that's where most of us are. If you're going to do one, do the right one and go all in.
Absolutely. And that's why it took me... That's why, like I said, I've written so many scripts, because none of them were right. Some of them are great. They're great scripts, but they're just not for now. They might be sometime in the future when reputation is established and you can do these films. But Beyond the Woods was right for when I made it, and this one is right for the follow-up. Both of them are right, and that's the difference. I've written, well, probably 3 or 4 other scripts between Beyond the Woods and this, which I'd like to make at some point. But I always knew they would require a higher budget, and they're not like what I said, one location, a small, like this film could be. I mean, even listening to mention the podcast again, but you were talking about crews being
Jesus, honestly, nobody, my own wife, I'm 90 episodes in, she won't listen to 5 minutes.
Well, they were saying about cast and crews being like 40 or 100, But I like to work on films that have small cast and crew. I think the bigger the cast and crew,
it's getting unwieldy.
Yeah, it is. It's just it's a nicer, easier thing to work. And that's not saying that people are overworked. I mean, you can still do it, with the crew that's required for something like this, which would be a single, pretty much a single location with a couple of cast. I mean, you don't need 100 people following them around the place. No. You just don't need it.
So what sort of size crew and equipment would you use? How big would that get? Lighting and all that kind of thing in that kind of project?
Funnily enough, for Beyond the Woods, I used 2 cameras. There was two cameramen on it the whole time. And the reason I did it was that there was I allowed a certain amount of improvisation, and I wanted to catch it. It was something that I'd seen they did in Coherence, where there was more reaction shots than you'd expect, and I wanted to feel very natural. I wouldn't do that in this, so there would be just one camera, which means that you only need to light for one camera. That was the awkward thing with Beyond the Woods, having to light for 2 cameras. It made things a bit more complicated than you'd expect, because, of shadows and everything, and keeping the lights out of the way, and then the sound, trying to get the boom in with 2 cameras, it made it more difficult.
Were the results, the pain worth the gain? In the sense of you saw where you could reinterpret where that happened and go, right, had you not got 2, we would have missed all that.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
100%. It was right. Yeah, and I was very lucky. I mean, the sound guy on that film as well, Hugo, he did everything, from his sound, and I wouldn't have someone do that again either. I would definitely have people to help people out. You do need. Someone holding the boom, someone monitoring the sound, someone helping with the setup.
He's talking our model there, George. Absolutely, we have all this sorted.
Absolutely.
That's great.
What about the editing process? How long did the editing take? How long did the shoot take, and how long did the editing take? What were proportions were there?
Interestingly enough, that also worked out differently to what I expected, because originally, I thought we could shoot the film in a week, in 7 days, 8 days actually. I thought we could do it in 8 days, and I brought it to a friend of mine who's a first AD, but he's very experienced in the industry. And I remember sitting down with him, and he said, "There is no way in hell you can shoot this in 8 days. It cannot be done. It's going to take you 13, 14 days minimum." And I was like, "Well, I have to shoot it in 8 days because I only have the house for 8 days. I only have the actors for 8 days. They're all coming down, the cast, the crew, everyone, for 8 days. They're all working off their own bat." But he was right, because by about the 3rd day, I thought there is no way in hell we could do this. Yeah. But it worked out really well because no one was getting paid. Everyone had to take time off to do the film. So it took another, we'd say, 5 or 6 months before I could get everyone together again to shoot the next part. And in the meantime, I edited, and I had to do the editing myself like that for economic reasons. But I edited it, and I realized little bits and pieces that I could add in to enhance it. It wasn't that there was stuff missing. It was just, well, this scene would be so much better if we just added in this little bit here and this little bit there. And another thing was, I changed the costume for the kind of creature in the film. It had been a black costume, but it was completely lost in the dark. So it just looked like a floating hands or floating head. So I changed the costume and reshot that, and both of those things made for a much better film. But in the end, the post-production did, because it was solely myself. I mean, I did the sound mixing, I did the editing, the grading, the VFX, the whole lot. So it took the guts of a year to get it all done, Yeah. So it was a longer process than it would be if you had.
I'm going to be terrible and go, how much of that year was you?
How much of all of it?
Yeah, but that's saying that if you were working at 70 grand as a little manager, 70 grand on top of the 80 is 150 now.
Yeah, you're dead right. But like I said, it's the investment. That 70 grand is the investment.
No, what I'm saying is you wrote the story. How much time did it take? You didn't get paid. You VFX the story. How much time did you get paid? So if you said in terms of actual physical hours of you, in terms of, weeks and months of a year, that was you could have been paid doing something else, and very handsomely in the industry. So you're going, you would be on 100 grand salary normally, you would be on 2 grand a week. What was the opportunity cost of you pursuing your passion?
Yeah, I get the point. I was doing this editing and VFX and all the rest while I was also working to earn a living. So it wasn't as if I was doing it 8 hours a day for that amount of time. It was.
But if you're to do a rule of thumb and go, how many hours do you think of your life was in it?
Yeah, God, that's a good question. I'd have to work it out. I mean, a lot, because like that, there is the writing of it, there is the planning of it. I've got a box there behind me because I did plan it meticulously. I knew if we were doing it, it would have to be like I had the shot lists, I had everything meticulously planned so that we could go from one scene to the next. I mean, most films, they say a minute a day or, this sort of thing. But I mean, we would have been shooting 4 or 5 scenes every day, like that's the kind of level.
Yeah.
But we could only do that because it was absolutely meticulously planned out. And because I was producing it and everything as well, and continuity and everything, it meant that, I had to work all that out in advance, even right down to the point of like, okay, we had one girl in makeup who was amazing. She did both the SFX and just normal makeup as well. And I was thinking, okay, she's there in the morning. I've got to get the first.
I love you. You're an accountant. You're a fucking accountant in disguise. You're going, right?
Yeah.
How long does that take? How long is a haircut? No. Sorry. That's not good. Do you want to be cutting there? Get a razor. Feck that. Get a wig.
I would imagine that if you had that consolidated in time-wise for editing, you would have edited that in 8 weeks. The actual edit part of it, you probably would have spent another 6 weeks doing the special effects if you were doing a 40-hour week or whatever into it. And again, that's based on my experience because I was an editor and I knew that we were given those time slots. So I would say that you're probably full-time. If you were full-time on that, minimum 16 weeks, maximum 20 weeks altogether. So that's where you could work out
pre-production planning and the script.
No, we were talking about editing. We were talking about editing there. In the script writing side of it, I bet you probably took maximum 5 weeks to write the script, something like that. And then you had your pre-production. The models of doing it do tend to work out. You can have 2, if you talk about units, you can have 2 units for pre-production, including script writing, to 1 unit of shooting, to about 3 or 4 in post-production. Normally 4 if you're doing your special effects. So again, if you're doing sort of 3 weeks, you're talking about 6 weeks of time in pre-production time, and you're talking about 8 to 10 weeks in post. That's normally those are the kind of markers that we would.
We're definitely up to half a year of normal 40-hour week here, though.
Yes, definitely half a year. Definitely. I mean, 26 weeks altogether.
But what I was trying to say was there's a little trick whereby you invoice yourself, you pay a little bit of tax, you create the losses, you actually create a tax break because you're paying tax on something else, but you're not clocking in any invoices to actually get the benefit of what you're giving. So most people, because they're not charging for themselves, they don't charge for themselves. And therefore, as you said, to the Netflixes, they saw it was 30 grand. No, it was 300. Because had you invoiced it in and gave us a director's loan, it would have been recognized with different tax breaks. You would be seen as the investor. You would have your other taxes could have been, depending on however you set it up, you would have been paying less taxes in your day job if you were actually investing back into yourself as something else. So most people, again, it's because of the team involved, and it's all the known unknowns and the unknown unknowns. We don't know what we don't know, and therefore we didn't know what right looked like, and we cost ourselves twice the amount.
What I found with most of the jobs that I did actually very, very specifically, even on current projects I'm working on, I work out my start and end times specifically to work out what the budget is, because they're used as samples to help us educate and then predict what the costings are for further projects. And I've done that for the last 30 years or more, and it's worked out really well, because I've normally, as an independent filmmaker working for clients, I've had to fight my corner with a lot of my clients to say why the price, why what their expectations have gone beyond is what the problem is. Because most people underestimate how much it takes and costs to do something. And when you tell them what their budget is and then they go and blow it, but they usually blow it by 3. That's something I've discovered. Throughout my whole career, most people underestimate by up to a third. It normally takes 3 times the amount of money than they expect, because they've underestimated so many different parts of their project, which is why it is important to go and actually produce a budget in the first place. And I actually learned that at college 40 odd years ago, because we even my diploma film that I made at that particular point in time, we were trying to work out the budget, and I was actually shocked that it was actually 4 or 5 times the amount that I expected. But I managed to get a deal with a graphics department who then funded it because they said that was the deal. They would give me that funding, so the film got made. But again, I learned very early on why you had to budget things and make sure you knew exactly. And I think that's
really be
where
talking about Sean's film now. I mean, I'm just thinking about 80% of this show is per Sean. You go, you think we film his name Beyond the Woods or Little Red Riding Hood or something like that? I don't know what the hell it's about. Some horror. We won't mention that. We get back on to, well, we know what we want to talk about.
We're talking about the horror of filmmaking.
The horror of trying to make a film. Exactly. Yeah. And the fright you get at the end. And as you said, it's there's no, and you said everyone dies. So you're going, we don't get paid. Everyone died. Everyone's killed. Everyone gets burnt. No, but you know you will, because you're coming from this level of the micro success. That will pay back the small one, the 80 grand, the 20 grand. They will get paid. The next ask, as you just said, is to 300. You're coming up to the 300, the 500. Your aspiration is, I don't want to be playing minimum, because if this is my one chance dance, I'd like to do a little bit of maximum in it as well. So you're probably courting the 300 to 500 sphere of going, I can do it for this, and the reason it's that price is it is the minimum location, it's a strong storyline, there's a bit of flashbang wallop, but you're gonna be caught by the dialogue and the story and the acting. And that's, we're not trying to distract you with, flashing lights over there. So this is the one you're going out there to package. Are you going to do something different now going forward to get that? Because it's how long is it going to take to get to make that? We don't want 10 years.
No, I would be hoping to be shooting it next year. I mean, the thing is, I suppose COVID has changed the industry in terms of it's become more difficult. I mean, people are still shooting, and I was talking to a friend of mine who's a locations manager, and he was saying there at the start there was benefits to COVID because he could get any location he wanted. Yeah. A pub, no problem. A school, no problem.
No customers, no 2 pupils.
That's it. So like he was saying at the start, but I mean, most. The whole
now, no insurance either, but turns out you can't get that.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's true. But it's so I don't want to be making. Ideally, it'd be nice to be making it when it's easier to make a film, when there's not the same massive restrictions as there are now. And anyway, even if someone came along with the money tomorrow, you still wouldn't be shooting it. Before Christmas, highly unlikely. Maybe
but the question is not, if I gave you the money, when you'd be doing it. Of course, it'll be next week, next year.
Yeah.
That's not the question. It'll only be, there's no problem getting your team together and paying them the going wage. It's how difficult do you think it's going to be for yourself, based on your current knowledge of the industry and investment risk, to attract that £500,000 quid?
I have more connections now than I did at the start, and I have people who are interested in it.
That's good.
So I did put a TV series treatment together a while ago, and a producer in Dublin and a distributor in London, both have been taking it out to TV channels over the last while.
That's great.
So there is now, as to whether anything comes from it or not, who knows? But the point is that they did take it, and they're taking it to the market, to the end users at the moment. They haven't gone to the streamers; they've gone to terrestrial channels right now, and I've just left it to them to do.
No, I'm going to stop you there. I'm going to be terrible, because you're totally dependent upon someone else coming back and telling you whether it's okay to do what it is you want to do. So we don't know when they're going to come back, and we don't know what the answer is when they come back, and therefore we're not doing it till they come back. What are you doing if they're coming back right now? I'm firing you. It's a no from them. What are you doing?
Well, that's the thing. I've got that, and I've got the feature film, and that's why you need to have a couple of eggs in the basket. And the feature film is going to other people that both I'm connected with, and people from the industry who would have done similar types of movies. So I suppose getting even, it yourselves, like, I don't know how many scripts you get in, you probably get loads of them in. Some of them are from people you're probably more likely to put them at the top of the pile. But even getting around to reading them, it's like, I mean, you're still
It's
reading
time.
80 to 100 pages. It's time.
Time
That's
and money
it.
for
That's
nothing.
your own- Exactly. So it takes time even to get to the point of someone. So then you read the script and you say, I like this script. This is a good script. Where do you go from there? Like, do you decide, okay, well, do I try and do a back of the envelope thing? Do I ask the person how much do they think? Where do you go from there? Wherever you go, it takes a while to decide. Okay, it still takes a bit of investigation before you think, okay, I'm going to back this. And like you said, with your accountant's hat on, the ultimate test is, or the ultimate test is it going to make you your money back? And is it going to make you more than your money back? And is it going to make you, what do you think the potential is? And how do you figure that out? And so all of those things, anytime you send something out, it usually ends up being 2 or 3 months before you hear anything back. So you've got to be working on other things at the same time. It's a long game, it really is. So I would be confident enough that it will get made. But you ask me again in 3 months after I've heard back from people, and after it's either going here or there or not. I have a lot of connections in the industry that can help me push things along, and I have ways of getting it to other people if that doesn't work. So it is.
Now the great thing about all that is you've got all those connections, whereas an awful lot of the writers coming from that direction up are just sending it out there going, don't know what it is. I know it's great because I wrote it, but I don't know if it's 1 million. I don't know if it's 2. I don't know if it's 3. I don't know if it has an audience. I don't know if it's in demand. And I don't have those connections. And I don't even know if it's on the bottom of the pile or the top of the pile.
True. But that's where Beyond the Woods has gotten me, because before Beyond the Woods, I would have been in the same boat. Whereas once you have something made and something that's out there and something that's doing well and been distributed,
now it's time to leverage that. You need to go out there and network like a nutter while it's hot.
Exactly.
Well, unfortunately, we've actually reached the hour and 5 minutes point, so we're going to have to sort of wrap up as we always have to do at some point during the show. And it did fly, and we were gaining, there's such a lot of rich information there. It's really good that we've kind of discovered, you've talked about, about 10, 16 films that you've actually written based in the horror genre. You're passionate about the horror genre. You've gone out and you've made loads and loads of short films, and that gave you the next step up to making your horror movie, the Beyond the Woods film that you've actually made that is now actually on Amazon, which is really, really brilliant to hear that. You've also discussed the issues that we were discussing before about distribution, that there are, issues with once they've taken their 50% fee, then they've taken their expenses out of the other 50%. Quite often the producer can end up with next to nothing. And it does make it very difficult to know whether that's a good, viable project to be actually working on or not. But you've also discussed with us that, it can take if you're not getting a project made and time's going by, it's taken like 7-8 years to some of the projects that to get off the ground. You actually feel that you need to go out and make something just to prove that you can do that. And although the accountant in Garvin would often say, no, you can't do that. Sometimes you feel, well, if I don't do that, no one's going to see that I can do this. And how am I going to get a break and get into the industry? Because a lot of people do work on the premise, it's whatever your last project was. We've also discussed the issues of budgeting things and trying to keep a handle on everything, because that's the big problem, is making sure the thing doesn't go over budget. But the interesting thing is that we were talking about the horror genre, but we got into the horror of the film business, which I think is what most of our audience is going to be interested in sort of listening to. So before we do go, any last words, Sean, you'd like to just say to maybe our potential audience, the other person that listens to our show?
Yeah. Well, I suppose if you're into film, just keep at it, keep at it and keep positive. And like you were saying, it's a good thing to remain positive. It's an easy industry to get down about, and just surround yourself with positive people. and get out there and network and meet people who you can go on this journey with together.
Now, I'm going to show the negativity in. It's not the negativity, it's just Sean keeps on telling me that everybody dies at the end. So I'm going, how do you stay positive with that one? But again, it's so true. Don't go into the woods today. Don't
go into the woods tonight. That's it. All right. Look, thanks everybody for watching and listening. This show goes out on a Friday. We hope to see you again next Friday. And thanks, Sean, and thanks, Garvin, for being with us today. Bye for now.
Hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe and click on the bell for notifications.